We start the day's other headlines with the legal battle over birthright citizenship. A federal judge today blocked the Trump administration from enforcing an executive order aimed at ending the longstanding law. New Hampshire Judge Joseph LaPlante issued a preliminary injunction and certified a class action lawsuit saying his actions applied to babies nationwide. That includes the children of undocumented parents and those born to people in the U.S. on student visas. The class action designation was seen as the only way to impose such a far-reaching measure after the Supreme Court's ruling last month that limited nationwide injunctions. The judge gave the administration 7 days to appeal. In Ukraine, at least 2 people have died in an overnight Russian missile and drone attack lasting nearly 10 hours. Firefighters worked to put out several new flames across Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv. At least 22 people were wounded and thousands spent the night sheltering in an underground metro station. It comes a day after Russia launched its largest barrage of the war so far. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. and Russia have exchanged new ideas for ceasefire talks after meeting with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. But speaking to reporters at a foreign ministers meeting in Malaysia, he also described the Trump administration's frustration at the lack of progress towards a deal.
It was a frank conversation. It was an important one. Look, the president's been pretty clear. He's disappointed and frustrated that there's not been more flexibility on the Russian side to bring about an end to this conflict. We hope that can change. And we're going to continue to stay involved where we see opportunities to make a difference.
Separately, Ukraine's European allies agreed to set up a headquarters in Paris to help deploy troops to maintain the peace after the war ends there. The announcement came at a meeting in Rome of the so-called Coalition of the Willing, which was attended for the first time by a U.S. representative, Keith Kellogg. European officials reached a deal with Israel today to allow more food and fuel into Gaza. The EU's top diplomat said the agreement could result in more crossings open, aid and food trucks entering Gaza, repair of vital infrastructure, and protection of aid workers. It comes as local hospitals and aid workers say Israeli airstrikes killed at least 36 Palestinians overnight. That included 15 people waiting outside a medical clinic, many of them children. Israel says it was targeting a militant when it struck near the facility. The Secret Service has reportedly suspended 6 agents over failures related to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump at a rally in Pennsylvania last July. The agency's deputy director, Matt Quinn, told CBS News that the suspensions range from 10 to 42 days with no pay or benefits during that time. The shooting exposed serious security failures after a gunman was able to access a nearby rooftop to fire at then-presidential candidate Trump. He was left with a bloody ear. A firefighter attending the rally died. Sunday marks the 1-year anniversary of that attack. Family members of those lost in January's mid-air collision in Washington, D.C. are criticizing the Army's handling of the disaster. In an open letter to Army Secretary Dan Driscoll, 168 loved ones say the Army's actions show a, quote, willingness to circumvent official processes and resist oversight when deflecting scrutiny, while persistently refusing to accept responsibility. They're calling for an independent investigation into the crash. 67 people were killed when a Black Hawk helicopter collided with an American Airlines jet as it approached Reagan National Airport. President Trump is tapping Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy to serve as interim leader of NASA. His selection comes after Trump withdrew his initial nominee, Jared Isaacman, back in May. The billionaire private astronaut is a close associate of Elon Musk, and his selection was seen as a potential boost to Musk's rocket company, SpaceX. Trump's decision to drop Isaacman helped fuel his public split with Musk. Duffy will hold on to his position as Transportation Secretary even as he takes up his NASA duties. In Los Angeles, 31 construction workers are safe and accounted for after a huge wastewater tunnel partially collapsed as they were working underground.
Tonight, we were lucky.
Rescuers feared the worst when they rushed to the scene late last night, but the entire crew was hoisted above ground with no major injuries reported. They've been operating a boring machine some 400 feet below ground and 6 miles away from this enormous shaft here. It's the tunnel's only access point. The $700 million project has been suspended until authorities can figure out what caused the collapse. And there's been a major shakeup in the cereal aisle. W.K. Kellogg, which makes Frosted Flakes and other morning staples, is being bought out by the Italian company behind Nutella in a deal valued at more than $3 billion. The Kellogg's brand traces its roots back to its founding in Michigan more than a century ago, but sales of its iconic cereals have struggled recently as consumers turn to protein bars and other breakfast options. The deal still needs approval from Kellogg's shareholders. And on Wall Street today, stocks closed higher as traders put their tariff concerns to the side. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed nearly 200 points on the day. The Nasdaq added nearly 20 points to close at a new all-time high. The S&P 500 also ended in record territory. And the world's first Birkin handbag sold for more than $10 million today at an auction in Paris. The winning price, when counting in fees, drew gasps and applause from the crowd. The bag itself was the prototype for what later became fashion's must-have accessory. It was named after the late actor and fashion icon Jane Birkin and traces its origins to a chance encounter she had on a flight in the 1980s with the then head of Hermès. Birkin was explaining why she wanted a larger handbag and sketched her own version on an air sickness bag. The rest, as they say, is fashion history. Still to come on the NewsHour, the Union for Government Workers responds to the Supreme Court ruling clearing the way for mass firings, an investigation into the private adoption industry, and a new opera gives voice to people with disabilities using artificial intelligence.
This is the PBS NewsHour from the David M. Rubenstein studio at WETA in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.